Hey everybody. Before we get started, there's a little election postmortem talk at the front half of this episode. If you don't want politics in your movie podcast, you can skip ahead to about the 10-minute mark once that starts. Thanks.
Thrill me.
I'm gonna name you Coda. You get a name too, Podo.
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
You too? You got a boner too? Blue Steel.
Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new season of the Unkind Rewind. Season 2, as Sean is fingering at me.
Excuse me?
Wow. So I'm Josh Dugan. I'm joined here with by my co-host, Sean McGrath. How are things, Sean?
Dramatic pause. Yeah. I mean, well, what's an appropriate answer for that? What's a non-cliche answer? How about that?
I don't know that there is one. I mean, we're not a political podcast, but if people have listened to this at all, there's probably no surprise that neither one of us is particularly happy with the way things are going.
Well, you could argue that we're a moral podcast.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, maybe not in terms of content, but in terms of practice.
Sure.
Two moral guys watching kind of an amoral thing happening. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, as I often do, waffle between analogies, metaphors to kind of help explain this.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're on the edge of a cliff and having a bunch of like drunken, rowdy barstool kids bump into you. Doing it intentionally, but not sure why they're doing it intentionally.
Sure.
I also kind of land on the metaphor of getting like a cancer diagnosis, like getting the call, and the call took 4 years to kind of for somebody to pick up on the other end. But when they did, and they told you the results of the tests that you have been taken, that you took, it didn't come back too positive, and now we're left dealing with that diagnosis and all the ramifications of something like that.
Although when diagnosis speak, it came back very positive in a very bad way. Yes.
Good way to put it. Yeah. Thank you for the correction. Another one that I've landed on is like the people who voted for him basically were the kids who shit at the public pool. Like,
yeah.
Like it may have felt good at the time. It may have felt like the right thing to do, but you were completely uninformed on how devastating it was going to be to everybody else. The difference being, Josh, my co-host, is that
get out of the pool.
Normally the lifeguard blows the whistle, everybody gets out of the pool. We can't. And even if you and I were to expat ourselves, like the problem will be here when we get back.
Yeah.
The problem won't go anywhere. And now there's two less people who are not part of the problem.
Yeah.
Who are not here.
Yep.
So why don't we...
It'd be a lot more than two people.
So why don't we each give each other some optimistic words, and they can be as pithy or as short, as insignificant, but something just to kind of wrap up the feeling of existential sort of Damocles dread that we wake up with every day. The two things...
It's more like the neutron bomb of Damocles, I think. But
yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
And we can, believe me, we can go through.
Okay, the one potentially positive takeaway is that the it I just can't fathom how much longer the Democratic Party can go on continuing to just entirely ignore the working class. And one side says they care about the working class in rallies, though they will then turn around. Well, really, this is both sides, actually, frankly. Both sides. One side's policy is slightly less deleterious to the working class than the others. And we've, for pretty much our entire adult lives, have voted for risk aversion, essentially.
And this goes, yeah.
For I mean, the Democrats abandoned the working class 40 years ago. Like, there's no getting around that. Clinton was basically Reagan again. Like, and Jimmy Carter was the first kind of neoliberal Democrat to get into power. Like, hasn't been great for the Democratic Party, and they did abandon the working class, and I don't think they can realistically continue to just cater to the elite donor class. And one hopes that this will cause a reckoning.
Yeah. I mean, like, for all the negative spill of the 2008 landslide election, the Republicans found a way to rebrand via the Tea Party, and look where it took them in a short 6 years.
Yeah.
It basically took him to the presidency. And yeah, I mean, regardless of if the Democrats can reclaim pretty much the majority of the country that they should be claiming.
Yes.
They need to brand better. They completely bungled it in terms of not even embracing their own achievements.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you don't, if you are given a pulpit like a debate, how you don't spend the entirety of that time reminding people what is good about this country and that Democrats did that.
Yeah.
God, there's so many like locks in the dam that fail on this. Biden not winning in 2020 and then immediately coming out and saying I'm a one-term president. And let's start thinking
even after hinting at that on the campaign trail that he would be. Like, the fact that he, like, the Dems probably do better in the general with a full primary and not this circumvention of the Democrats.
Did you see the number one Google search on election day?
Yeah. Can I take back my vote?
Well,
or whatever?
Did Joe Biden drop out?
Oh, yeah. But all of the top 7 Google searches were all like, can I take back my vote? Did Joe Biden drop out? We're the one sort of wrinkle that makes me hesitant to, like, throw out the baby with the bathwater is that there's still a huge chunk of the population that doesn't vote at all. Realistically, I think we're looking at like 30% of the population that are actual, like, enthusiastic Trump voters.
Mm-hmm.
And we're dealing with a solid 30 to 40%, depending on the year, who aren't voting at all because they've been disenfranchised.
The nice thing, and here's what I kind of hang my hat on in some optimistic way, is that there are some people who are so dyed in the wool that their loyalties do not, while they are deep and to the bone, they do not transfer. Whereas
there's that
you
too.
and I can look at, say, the next 4 years and throw a bunch of names, and there might be names that we don't know of that could be banner holders of the party. They have one guy.
Yep.
The
other guys are resoundingly unpopular.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't see how that carries when he's dead. And to be 80 and not in great shape, statistically speaking, evil does seem to linger a long time. Like the worst
Henry
of us.
Kissinger?
Dick Cheney.
Yep.
I mean, those guys do have some weird
Yeah.
Faustian bargain where they do last way longer than the best of us.
Sure.
But he's also dumb.
Yes.
And
I don't know. I mean, he's dumb about anything that doesn't serve his own best interest.
right.
Or his own not even best interest, but just whatever makes he's such a narcissist that he's good at picking out who will feed his narcissism, but
he's also not an idealist, and he's
No.
also not some type of fanatic.
and he's not an ideologue
No.
like Vance or
The problem, I think, is that he's dumb, he's powerful, and he feels wronged, and that's a really awful combination.
yeah.
But it's not like a Putin-like legacy that he can build now.
Right.
I worry, there are some worries that like CBS and NBC and ABC and major media networks start to sound a bit more like Fox, and then we get, maybe they get deprived access. Maybe we get something that feels a bit more like state TV coming from, say, Fox, where they would never, ever, ever say anything
Sure.
contrary to what the administration wants them to sound out. So, I think this is a really hard thing to categorize, really hard thing to quantify, really hard thing to kind of like have any type of metrics on. But I think the next 4 years, people are going to be meaner to each other.
Yeah.
And that's really sad. And I think they've learned their lesson from the top down when you have somebody who is just mean in general, like
Sure.
like in his fiber, who faces no repercussions to any of the mean things that he's done.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't.
Good times. Okay, let's move on from this.
Are you sure?
Yeah. So it's been a few months. I know when we went off air, we were talking about coming back sometime in September. Then things got complicated with Much My Benson, and it looked like I would have free time once Adam had to go on paternity leave. So
Munch My Benson being the other podcast that Josh hosts.
yes. So
But we have a new Schwitters.
Yep. David Schwimmer Schwitters.
David Schwitters has joined the chat.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Megan and Adam, and
Yes, congrats.
older brother Max.
Yep. But yeah, so then it seemed like, okay, well, I'm gonna have a respite from Much My Benson for the first time in 4.5 years. May as well time this a little better and have that end right when I start dropping these. So, because editing is not fun and takes a long time, and it really sucks when you have to edit like 2 episodes in a week instead of 1.
Are we in a better place with Munch My Benson now?
How do you mean?
Are you teetering on the edge of a nervous breakdown?
We're done.
Done.
Well, we're on paternity leave. Hiatus.
There we go.
Yeah.
Let's be
not done though. Just
it was unclear earlier.
Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
we're not done. He's just on paternity leave, and so we're going to try
it's
to have a backlog of 4 episodes built up. So it will.
It's
start.
convenient though that he had a child, in that it gives a little bit of time.
Yes, because it had been 4.5 years.
Yeah, that's a long time without a break.
4.5 years of every single week. Not missing a fucking week for 4.5 years.
That's a lot of munching.
It's a lot of munching. And quite a bit of Bensoning too.
Yeah, I would say so.
So yeah, so we're back.
So anyway, we're back.
We're back. We're back. Baby.
We got some doozies.
Yeah. What have you been up to non-election wise?
I mean, it feels so much that I've been living, breathing, and eating everything election. So yeah, it's a weird time right now. Well, maybe I mentioned at some point I'm on the SAG nominating committee.
I feel like you did off mic just to me.
Yeah, I can mention it now.
Okay. Yeah, I know there was a concern that you couldn't mention it before, so you hadn't. Yeah.
So I've been seeing everything. Some things I don't want to see, some things I certainly want to see.
Yeah.
And it's been a steady diet of probably 3 screenings per week, in addition to kind of like my normal daily diet of like a movie and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've seen some really standout movies from 2024, and then a lot of also rans that I don't think I need to bring up here. But last night,
kind of aspirant Oscar trash that just doesn't land.
Yeah, and you know what? I may have been a little apathetic going into the movie last night, just because it's a adaptation of a musical. It's an adaptation of a musical that was an adaptation of a book. We're gonna see if you can get this. It's something that, like, instinctually I know that you will have zero interest in.
Yeah. I mean, you're already just hearing musical, zero interest. I'm
something that your wife may drag you to. But also one of the most like talked about or promoted movies of like the next month or two.
Oh, right. God damn it. Wicked. Yeah.
So last night, not only
I saw the trailer and was not into it at all.
Yeah, and this is coming from John Chu, who did Crazy Rich Asians, which was made $1 billion or something. Mm-hmm. Got him the keys to this car to drive Wicked. I think it's really good.
Okay.
And I can admit that musicals that jump to the screen, Mamma Mia, Phantom, fucking Cats.
You saw Cats, right?
They don't work. I saw enough of Cats. I couldn't sit through all of Cats.
I got nauseous watching Cats.
Yeah. And this is from a guy who has made a good movie before, so like
He also did In the Heights, right? Didn't he direct?
Yeah, but I'm talking about Tom Hooper, who did Cats.
Right.
It's possible that he can make good movies. But yeah, this guy did In the Heights. He did Crazy Rich Asians, and I was like as shocked as anybody on how I felt getting out of this. I was like, 2 big things. One is I think it's really good, and I don't know where Ariana Grande has been hiding in terms of acting.
Okay, I was going to say I can tell you that she's not been hiding anywhere
other than a massive pop music career. I don't know that side of her. But
you know that her pop music career came on the back of her being a Nickelodeon or Disney teen star, right?
Right, but like, is that anything that you can hang your hat on in terms of like acting prowess? No.
She's good at impressions, apparently.
She's really good in this, and not only is she really good in this, she's fucking funny. Which Ariana Grande being really funny,
hurts.
Like, doesn't hurt, but it's not.
It's unfair.
Look, if she can do it, like, join the fucking club, because there's plenty of room on the boat for an actress who looks like that, who sounds like that, to also have a funny bone. Like,
yeah, you're getting to where I'm saying it's unfair.
Yeah, it's a little unfair,
Yeah.
but like I was really struck with how funny she
Okay.
was in Wicked. Um, yeah, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Let me know what you think. Maybe we'll have another talk uh, if it comes across your lap. But it was really good. Yeah, it was really good. And again, I'm not as much of a Broadway kid as I am. I'm not a easy mark for the adaptations to film.
Yeah. Now this was based on Return to Oz.
Oh man, can you imagine? Like Jeff Goldblum as a wheelie?
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, unfortunately, it had nothing little to do with Return to Oz.
Well, then I know Max won't see it, and I probably won't either.
Okay, well, we're just gonna have to wait long enough so that Wicked becomes a Unkind Rewind pick for one of our guests.
Sure, yeah. Someone who has not been born yet.
Yeah,
it can be David.
Yeah, David could watch this, and then 30 years can go by, and we can revisit.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All right, good plan.
Have you seen anything non-musical?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Honora. I think Honora's
We're gonna go this weekend, I think.
Yeah, I think Honora is fantastic. It's everything that it's received. I think it's worth it. Mikey Madison. If you told me that the pale-faced girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was going to become, the most talked about actress of this year, I would have lost that bet.
Yeah.
I think I've told you privately. I think The Order with Jude Law is fantastic. I think the Saoirse Ronan recovery movie, The Outrun, is very, very good. And I liked Mad Max Furiosa. It's old, but
Yeah, it was good.
I thought it was really well done. So this week I have Heretic
Okay.
with everybody's favorite stuttering Brit, Hugh Grant. I have Night Bitch
Okay.
with Amy Adams, and then I have this documentary about Christopher Reeves, and then
Superman or whatever the hell it's
Superman, yeah. And then in a week or something, I'm seeing the Bob Dylan movie, Complete Unknown.
called. Okay.
So that's on my plate for now, and yeah, I mean,
Conceptually, I was excited for Night Bitch, but most of the reviews have turned me off.
yeah,
being
I'm worried.
excited.
I'm worried a little bit about that too.
I just saw The Substance this week.
Oh, what a trip, huh?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
I
it's
liked My Old Ass.
I like that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Again, one of these movies I kind of go into with not a lot of background on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really impressed.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, might just make a top 10 appearance. We'll see.
Yeah. I watched Modern Romance this morning. I've seen it before, but I love that movie.
It's really good. Yeah. And there's not a lot of movies like that, certainly of that age.
Yeah. It's kind of like proto cringe almost.
Yeah, it's a weird. I haven't heard that, but
I don't think it's been coined before. It can't not have been, I guess, but I've never seen it. But it is like, this is proto cringe. Like Albert Brooks is just so willing to like be the villain in these traditional, like whether it's sort of the mock documentary format of real life or the sort of arguable rom-com that Modern Romance is, but to turn himself into a villain in these formats is really funny to me.
And a character who doesn't know that he is that villain.
Yes, yeah. That's just so self-obsessed, self-absorbed, and incurious about what other people are feeling. That his actions are only there to serve his own ends and he doesn't realize this.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes in that movie is a simple car ride.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
I mean, how long does the car ride last? A minute?
It doesn't last a Michael Jackson song.
But like that to me is
Yep.
such a smart move
Oh yeah.
to keep the camera there and not know where we're going as an audience, just know that we're driving.
Yeah, the
And
camera's
then
just like placed center hood.
Yep. And then just to see where we end up.
Uh-huh.
Really smart move from a really smart guy. And I mean, Modern Romance is like, such an essay of that early 80s time too. It'd be really great to kind of have him revisit modern day and be able to kind of do something similar to this.
Right.
While we still have him.
Yeah. I keep wishing that he would do more. Because like even Mother's really good.
He's a national treasure. He really he's amazing and whatever
and really singular.
Yes.
Woody Allen still makes himself kind of the hero in his films.
Mm-hmm.
Or, because they're contemporaries. That's why I'm kind of talking about Woody Allen. I don't want to talk about Woody Allen, generally speaking. But, obviously they kind of fill a similar place, but Brooks is so willing to make himself the bad guy. And really, like, in both real life and Modern Romance, is there a single redemptive thing about their characters? About his character? Like, in both of them? I don't think there is.
Yeah, and especially kind of how those movies end up, right, with Dakota and what he wants the audience to kind of know about these characters. Yeah, I mean, singular, unique, one of a kind, very apt phrases for his work. And yeah, you're right. Like it's a shame that he wasn't churning them out. But then again, maybe he puts out 5 extra movies and they're not at a caliber that we would expect. So yeah, I don't know. He's great. Welcome on the show at any point.
Yeah. We'll see what movie from the
50s?
50s? Yeah. He hasn't seen since then. But yeah, Albert Brooks, you're welcome to come on the pod.
Yep.
Love to have you on.
We'll reach out.
We'll talk about we'll not even mention Alparkiakakis, which was his dad's professional name.
We'll yeah, and then wasn't he an Einstein?
Yep. That's why he's Albert Brooks, because he
Albert
couldn't
Einstein.
be Albert
Yeah.
Einstein, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you could make an argument that he had more to contribute than the other Albert Einstein.
Well,
at least to this podcast.
To this podcast, yes.
Maybe not in terms of physics.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, the Einstein might have him in physics.
Okay. Well, let's leave ourselves some wiggle room and just say might.
Yeah.
Be able to get out of that.
So we haven't had a bunch of since we've been down, we haven't had a bunch of people reaching out, but Joe Biden did email the podcast again. This time he asked, "So can I podcast on my flip phone? Mm-hmm. Where am I? Hello?" I don't think flip phones have podcast listening capability, Joe, but
maybe if they put it near a speaker, right? And then he can hear through his flip phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what he wants to do. Oh, God. And he had to sit there and shake his fucking hand today and like do the transfer of power bullshit.
Whatever. Okay. I just
on.
had this in there for the joke, not to go back to.
Hey man, you brought it up.
I just wanted the joke. We don't need to.
Okay. Well, that's what happens. Like if we don't get more listener mail, then we're going to be resorting to these antics.
But he did email.
Okay.
Yeah. There's someone emailed for him. I know we can't.
Somebody emailed for him.
Yeah, he can't turn on a computer. He dictated an email to his grandchild, maybe.
I don't know if
Who does his emailing?
Do you think the next president's going to have any more of a capability with computers?
No, can't even read.
Yeah. Doesn't read.
Can't
And doesn't.
Cannot read. Yeah. Did you ever see the clip of Pete Davidson talking about when he came on SNL and like was basically he refused to read anything because he can't read? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's like, well, what if I say it like this? That's his workaround to get around the fact that he's barely literate. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Good times. All right. So for next week's episode, we are talking to Leo Allen Jr. Now, as will be mentioned in the conversation that follows here, the pre-interview, you can get to all things Leo through his website, Leo Allen Jr., and that's LeoAllenJr.com. The link to his music, which he's just released another thing, another album on Profound Simplicity. That's his moniker. But he's you can link you can go to youtube.com/@Profound Simplicity to find all that. And his podcast, Voluntary Input, he is looking tentatively at January as the month in which he'll return. In the meantime, he was a guest pretty recently on Casting Views, so you can check that out once you're done here. You're not on the pre-interview for this one, so before we get to the movie, which this is one of the 4 from season 2 that the guest was aware of the movie that we're doing with them.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll be talking with Leo about his recollection of Brainstorm, which I obviously had not seen, and you had not seen either, right, Sean?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So its reputation did precede it because it's got a kind of dark history that we'll touch on both, I believe, both this week and next. But
Also,
especially next week.
what was the website you had for Leo?
LeoAllenJr.com.
I think it's LeoJAllenJr.com.
Oh, shit, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, LeoJAllenJr.com.
Yeah, you don't want to go like you slip into the dark web or something with that other site.
Yeah, or to the Wicked website.
Hi-oh.
Yeah, that happened this week.
Yeah, some promotional. I don't even know what
toys.
it was.
It was toys.
Some toys had wickedpictures.com.
No,
What
it was
was it?
just wicked.com is the website for the adult film company.
And
it was wickedfilm.com or something like that.
Wicked the film, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to double check that, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. But all of Leo's links will be in the show notes along with the links to our social media. I don't know about Sean, but I'm about 4 seconds away from shuttering everything on Twitter.
I think we'll do it. I mean, I think I'll keep it for Cinequote for a little bit.
I'm gonna keep the accounts up for a little while so people can follow over because there are those there's Chrome extensions that you can get to carry over to figure out who you followed on Twitter and carry that over to Blue Sky if they've gone on. But I'm definitely consciously not posting on Twitter unless it's just a promotional, like this is the thing we're putting out. But like any external link gets throttled on Twitter and Facebook, so I kind of don't understand the point as a creator of even being on them.
Yeah, and we'll softly nudge people who are listening maybe to do the same.
Yeah. Blue Sky is more dexterous. It still functions like Twitter did. But yeah, it's, I think, a better, less toxic conversation.
Twitter's lost.
Twitter's lost, yeah.
It's lost.
I mean, Twitter and Truth Social are going to merge. That's the talk. So
yeah, Twitter's gone. Like you can't get it back.
Yeah. Nor do I care to at this point.
Much like your uncle.
Yeah. Well, Well, yeah, I get not on my mom's side, but maybe on my dad's side.
Yeah,
There are a lot more uncles on that side.
There's one or two. Everybody's got one or two.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah. Um, yeah, anyway, sorry about the first like 10 minutes of this episode.
Way more than that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. I was timing it. It
Okay.
was about 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But
Yeah.
we're here for you.
yeah, we're here. The pod's back. There's a lot of fun. We've recorded 9 full films. So we've already recorded, aside from this little banter, the early Q's and T's episode banter between me and Sean, we've recorded 18 fucking episodes of this season. So,
Yeah.
I can say there's a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
I've been on all of these calls. There's some wild movies in the mix, and I think season 2 is going to be a breath of fresh air for you.
Escape with Josh and I.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Yes. Thanks. And now our conversation with Leo Allen Jr. Welcome, everybody, to another installment of our teaser episode with Leo Allen this week. We'll get into his movie, but Leo, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Let them get to know you a little bit.
Well, thank you. My name is Leo, of course. You may know me from the Voluntary Input podcast, which has been on hiatus for a bit now. Spoiler alert, it may come back. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, I've been working on some of my other... I'm a very curious person, and I tend to have a lot of projects going all at once. I got a music thing that I do known as Profound Simplicity. I've also been doing some audiobook work, doing some production work for some folks. And that's me. I always love to be in the creative space, and it tends to have a lot of things going on all at once. So.
Sure does, yes. So I guess when paint a picture of what your life would have been like when you would have been watching the movie that we're about to watch.
Oh, I laugh because I think about 14 or 15.
Okay.
And this is what I like to refer to as the height of my nerdum era. People have to remember when this movie came out, this was at a time when technology, computers, especially home PCs, home PC was not really a term at this time. And this was a golden age to watch this stuff starting to grow and unfold and being involved in it. So I was just this nerdy kid, just pounding away on the keyboard, programming, making games and whatnot for friends in the neighborhood and such.
So what kind of computer would you have had? This came out in, was it 83?
83. I had one of the most glorious machines ever created, the TRS-80 Coco.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to say Tandy.
Tandy.
Yeah. That's the first one we had growing up.
For those who know what you just said and why the TRS meant, that's a reference back to Tandy anyway. So yeah.
So where did you grow up, Leo?
In a nice little town in Ohio called Middletown,
Okay.
Ohio, southwestern Ohio. Yeah.
Okay. I was born, but do not remember any of the time I spent in Ohio. But I was born up in Ashtabula.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we can probably mention the movie that we'll be watching, which is Brainstorm. And every time I say Brainstorm, I want to say Brain Scan for some weird reason. I don't know
Right.
why.
Me too.
But yes, we're going to be watching Brainstorm, which is at the very least I believe the fateful movie in which Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood met in the first place, and obviously she would die shortly thereafter. Not that he had anything to do with it.
Right.
But
and then there were the cruel jokes.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if you remember those, but yeah.
So memory can be a tricky thing. Having not rewatched this in ages, can you briefly describe what you remember the basic plot of the film being? You know, maybe a minute or two. No, we don't need much more than that, but
The basic premise of this movie is Christopher Walken. I don't know. I can't remember what it was he was doing for a living,
okay.
but he was basically a genius that came up with this machine that could record your experiences, not just like you're watching a videotape. It was feeling your emotions, your what you smell, what you hear, everything. And he invented this thing, and I think he wasn't the only one that worked on it, but yeah, that's the premise of the movie. And then of course, being the 80s, there was always the threat of, this was like a common 80s trope. If someone came up with something that was pretty cool and amazing, the government wants to use it for the military. So that there's a mix of that in there too, because they got to defend us from the evil Soviet Union.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
or whichever. Sometimes it was a fill-in communist country, but it was always communism.
it was always communist.
But it was the Soviets here that they were having that the overreaching government was trying to protect us from.
I think, but I can't remember if they actually mentioned a country by name.
Okay, sure.
But or whatever. But there was that threat that the military wanted to come and take this invention and use it for military applications.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what sci-fi is doing all the time, right? I mean, I'm watching
like that,
Three Body Problem, and they're doing that right now too. So it's definitely a very recurrent theme in sci-fi. How is the government going to weaponize our tech? Anyway, so you said you were 14 when you were first watching this?
Yeah, 14 or 15, somewhere.
Okay.
In
there. Was this something that you saw in the theater?
No, actually, I saw this on home video tape. Yeah, videotape. Okay. We rented it. Again, for the youngs listening to this show.
Sure.
Blockbuster was not the only video rental store.
No, it was not.
Those things were everywhere, and it was big business. And I think we rented this from, I'm going to try to, it was one, local there, wherever you lived, there was always like these local rental stores.
Uh-huh.
And then the big guys like Blockbuster and Hollywood Rental, they came in. But I can't even remember the name of the video store we rented this from. But I just remember seeing the commercial. So what would happen back in the day, a movie would go to theater, and depending on how successful it was, you could kind of time when it was going to come to video cassette.
Sure.
So this one, I don't know if it was considered a blockbuster or not. I can't remember, but I know that I saw it pretty early after the release. Mm-hmm. It kind of came to video cassette almost kind of quickly.
Okay.
For the time, and that used to be a gauge of how good a movie was. Like if it came too quick, you're like, oh, this probably isn't going to be very good.
Right.
But this one, the timing was fine enough for me to watch it. I guess I'll put it that way.
Sure. Yeah, it was weird. Blockbuster and Hollywood Video didn't really get their hold in a lot of places until the later 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
There was definitely like a sweet spot through the 80s where like Blockbuster hadn't really like taken over the market for the home video rental market until like almost through the decade. Because
Like
I
I
don't
said,
even
in Middletown, where I grew up, we didn't have a Blockbuster until the 90s.
Sure, same. Yeah. The
Yeah,
first
so
time
there
I had a Blockbuster was in 1990 when we moved to Kansas.
hmm
But yeah, I don't even think I saw one before then. So it definitely
Me
was
either.
kind of like right around the like 89 to 90 is when it started to become like ubiquitous. And then by, the early 90s it had
They took
Yeah.
they took everyone down. They were like the Walmart of video
Yeah.
stores.
Yeah.
And then where are they now?
Yeah. Is the one still left?
They're still, where is it? Is it in
Is
Washington?
in Bend, Oregon. Yeah.
Oregon. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was out west.
Yeah, and there was a second to last one. The penultimate Blockbuster was in Alaska, I believe. All right. So, what do you think you were like at the age that you would have been taking in Brainstorm?
Like I said, I was super nerdy.
Okay.
So this movie, when it blew my mind,
Okay. Nice.
I was like, this is the future right here, watching
Sure.
this movie. Because again, like we were just talking about, video cassette, and this movie is, from what I remember, it was this tape. Like this machine would record on this like holographic tape.
Sure.
So you got that element, and we're already deep in the age of home video. So it's like, okay, tape combined with computer technology. My mind was like, oh my gosh, really? This is the future. This is the year 2000. Because you remember back then, everything was, oh, in the year 2000, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I mean, hence the Conan joke.
Right, that's
the
why
bit
he
that they
said-
kept going after the year 2000, just like, no, we're sticking with it. Yeah.
2000.
Yeah.
2000 was supposed to be the pinnacle, but whatever. But looking at this movie, I thought, oh my gosh, if somebody makes this will be the end of all. Like, we wouldn't have to do anything else if technology gets to this point.
Sure. Was this something that you rented often? You saw this more than once. Did you ever own it on VHS or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
This was a favorite at the Allen household.
Okay.
Loved this movie. But like everything else, over time, I just kind of lost touch with it.
Sure.
You move on. You have to
Yeah.
eventually move on.
Yeah. And I mean, it's harder as technology, as the medium by which you take in that technology changes to where you're on the third or fourth iteration of like whatever, first it was VHS, then it was Laserdisc, then it was DVD. then
I'm
Blu-ray.
sorry, I gotta correct you. First, it was Betamax.
Sure. Sorry, Betamax. Yeah. Did you see this on Betamax or
No,
did you see
this
this
was
on
on
VHS?
VHS.
Okay. All right.
I saw quite a few movies on Betamax at the time.
Yeah.
But this wasn't one of them. I think by the time this came out, I think they were really hardcore phasing Betamax out. So
Yeah.
like they would do that released on both platforms. It would be beta and VHS. But I think by the time this rolled around, I think they were starting to get rid of beta.
So Sony lost the Betamax wars, right? But didn't they win they won the Blu-ray war?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
at least they got one in their favor. And I mean, it
Blu-ray
looks like
was better for them. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and it looks like they're going to beat out Xbox ultimately too.
Well,
from the
that's
sound
a
of it.
matter of opinion, I think you got to be
From the
careful with
sound of
what
it.
you say.
So when do you think the last time you saw this was?
It's going to be probably about 20, 25 years
Okay.
since I watched this.
Yeah.
So I did this thing years ago, about 10 years ago, where I got rid of cable,
Mhm.
and I was like, but I need to still be able to watch my favorite movies. I can be a bit of a movie junkie, especially when it comes to sci-fi, of course, and tech and horror. I love horror movies. I have a pretty I'm a brag about my horror collection. Um, but I got to the point where when I was getting rid of cable, I'm also like, I'm a very minimalist kind of person. So I'm like, I also don't want a DVD player anymore. I want all my media. So I started ripping all these movies onto an external hard drive. Well, then eventually what happened was when I cut the cable, I was like, I need to be able to still watch this stuff somehow. Well, that's when I stumbled upon Plex.
Mhm.
And so I set up a Plex media server, and all of those things now live on this. What do I have? A 16 terabyte drive now at this point with all of my movie collection. And there's some TV shows in there too.
Mhm.
But a lot of them I haven't watched in years, and this is one of them. Like
Okay.
it's just there. And I'm like, well, I can watch it anytime I want. It's part of my collection. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, what do you think it is about Brainstorm that appealed to your younger self?
oh my, like I said, the just the idea of a technology that you could capture people's brains. Like,
Mhm.
nowadays we talk about all this AI stuff, which is fascinating because it's the first time that in a while that tech has been interesting. And I think that's part of the hype of AIs because things started getting boring for a while there.
Yeah,
We keep releasing phones. Who cares anymore? All the phones are the same. I
yeah.
hate to burst people's bubbles, but they're all the same.
Mhm. I still have
But
an 8. I still have an iPhone 8.
you're fine, and
Yeah,
you're doing fine.
yeah,
So not much has changed except the cameras. That's all they talk about. But
yeah.
anyway, so the tech in this movie was just so just out of this world. How could you possibly not just record what someone's looking at? Okay, anybody could do that. You can strap a video camera on your shoulder, and nowadays you can get glasses that can
Mhm.
record anything you're doing. But not only that, but what they're feeling and smelling and hearing and tasting. That's what I remember the most about this movie
Okay.
is like, wow, that's an incredible thought.
So is the conceit that obviously it's full sensory, but is the conceit that then other people can also experience all of that sensory experience of someone else's?
That was the whole
Okay.
sell,
Okay.
was that somebody could pop in your. Now from what I remember, they didn't do tapes. They were like reels, weren't they?
Hmm.
They were these reels, so you record everything using this machine that Christopher Walken invented, and you sit down or no, wait, they didn't just sit down because there was one of my favorite scenes was um I think it was like a demo tape, and they
Okay.
just had somebody go out and do stuff, and they were riding a roller coaster and stuff.
Okay.
So somebody could pop that reel in, and they
Mhm.
could feel what you felt when you were riding that roller coaster, like you were actually there.
So do you think this was inspired by Smell-O-Vision?
Actually, I think the opposite is true. I think, oh gosh, smell-o-vision.
What memories do you have that stick out most about Brainstorm? Like ranging from personal experiences with a movie, or like hanging out with a specific friend group, or the family, or anything that sort of sticks out about having watched this in your younger days.
There is one part in this movie that will stick with me forever. Um, when Christopher Walken plugs in to watch, well, I should stop saying watch, to experience. Someone had died, and now I
Mhm.
can't remember who it was and what happened. And the machine recorded them dying,
Okay.
and they started going into the afterlife. That whole sequence, chef's kiss.
Nice. Nice.
And I remember watching that with the family. I was a kid and my mom and my dad and we're all sitting there watching. It was like, oh my gosh, they're recording someone going to heaven.
Uh-huh.
And that was just wild to me. And that whenever I hear the name of this movie or even think about it, that's the scene that always pops in my head first.
Okay.
The death scene.
And it's not, we don't see anyone go to hell?
No. Well, actually,
okay.
I think there was a part of it where they got to see what it would be like if you did.
Okay.
But whoever it was that died, it turned around and was like, yeah, but you're not going there. Don't worry about that, though. You're not going, if I remember correctly. I think they did touch on that just for a moment. But then they started going up into the light, like they like to say.
So hell's just a cruel tease.
Well, it's just to show you what you had to, what would happen if you had messed up.
Right. And now you got to behave up here too.
You still got to be a good boy.
What expectations do you have for your return to Brainstorm?
Oh, that it's still just, I tell you what, I do have this one expectation because I know this always happens with movies over time. I expect some of the dialogue to be campy and corny.
Sure.
But and I expect some of the stuff that I thought was like amazing high tech to start to look a little dated. But my hope is that it still has the magic, because the last time I watched this, like I said, it was about 20 something years ago. I think I was still like, yeah, this still holds up. So I hope that it still holds up.
Okay, cool. Well, that concludes the pre-interview, if you will. Leo, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me everywhere, almost, except X. I left X before it got sold. But anyway, that's
I wish I could.
I'm mostly on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads, and I'm out and about.
Is your handle pretty much always I know it's often Leo Allen Jr., but
Leo J. Allen Jr. All you gotta do is look for that at Leo J. Allen Jr.
Okay.
And I did that purposefully because years ago, and I wrote a post about this, and my first podcast episode was about owning your online self. And I use my name the way I do because I want to make sure that I am my own property. And we can get into that sometime. Sure. Or you could just go listen to the very first episode of Voluntary Input, which is called Owning Your Online Self. So, yeah, and people can still go check out Voluntary Input. All of the episodes that were ever published are still there. The YouTube channel is still up. And like I said, maybe it'll be back at some time. Who knows what the future holds?
Yeah.
And you can also check out my music you can go to YouTube and just look for Profound Simplicity. So it's youtube.com @Profound Simplicity. And
are you on SoundCloud also?
Also on SoundCloud. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I just dropped a new single. So
okay, it's not I was gonna make a joke, but I don't want to. It's not gonna be evergreen, so I'll stay away from it. It's not a diss track about what's going on right now.
Oh my gosh. El Drizzy? No. No, it's not a diss track. I don't do that.
Cool.
You know what's funny? I'm sorry, we're gonna get all off track here. Yeah. But what's funny about that whole situation is I've never listened to any of the diss tracks. But I know everything about what's going on because of the way people are posting and talking. It's like, I'm so far disconnected from hip hop, probably because I'm old. But but it's like it's funny to watch it because I remember when back when Jay-Z and Nas had their big diss war, I was caught up in all of that.
Sure, but it was easier to follow. It wasn't dropping like 7 tracks in 3 days or something.
Exactly. Can't keep up with these kids.
Anyway, well, thank you for spending some time with us this week, Leo, and really look forward to watching a movie that I've not seen for next week.
You've never seen this?
Never seen it.
Oh, you're in for a joyride. Let me hype it up a little bit.
A lot of times, because it's usually Sean and I picking the movies, and a lot of times we'll go for something we haven't seen.
Right.
Or something that we're not sure, because there's certain movies that it feels like, oh, this movie's going to pop up on like every fourth list that we get from guests. And so if it's a movie that doesn't feel like that, like if it's a movie we don't really know, then that's kind of oddly like the one. It's not the most commercial approach, but it's the thing that like interests us the most is like seeing something weird that we haven't seen. So,
I have one question for you.
Sure.
When was the last time you've seen a young Christopher Walken?
I mean, I've seen like The Dead Zone. I've seen Deer Hunter. It's not a foreign concept to me. I'm trying to think of what the last. It's probably been like 10 years.
Yeah.
For the last, because I saw all of those a while ago now. But I definitely, it's not going to be like a total trip to see young,
oh my gosh,
still fit, not that far from being a dancer, Christopher Walken. It's not going to be that strange for me. I don't know that I've seen anything with Natalie Wood as late as this. I mean, obviously, I don't believe there's anything later.
No.
But yeah.
And she's beautiful in this movie too, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
But we'll talk about her a lot more next week.
Yeah.
Along with young Christopher Walken. So,
more cowbell.
Yeah, more cowbell. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Leo, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate, review, like, and subscribe to Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and Good Pods. Links to all our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as @UnkindRewindPod on nearly every social media platform, all of which are available at our website, unkindrewind.com. If you have a question, concern, complaint, or feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com or call into our call-in line, area code 507-479-6440, and leave a message that can be played on air. Fans should join the Munchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue may just make it into a future episode of the pod. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.